Hi there, I'm Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez, and this is the Design Your Physician Life podcast. Welcome to this episode brought to you by our Maxillary Mastermind, a professional and personal development program for physician entrepreneurs. Today, we have one of the greatest guests, Dr. Hala Sabri. We're very grateful for her presence here. She's actually the founder of Physicians Moms Group on Facebook. This is over 130,000 members that she has, and she's a coach and consultant for many businesses. We have a great conversation with Dr. Sabri about achieving and maintaining success. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Design Your Physician Life podcast, where you will get excited about being a physician, learn the tools that can help boost your success, and great tips from successful doctors. Join us to unlock the keys to an amazing physician life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez.
So guys, I just cannot tell you how excited I am. I'm honored. I have here a wonderful human being and friend. And I know that, it's going to sound like slower, but it's like, I love Dr. Hala Sabri. She's an emergency medicine physician who is most well known for founding Physician Moms Group, which is the largest women physician support group in the world with over 130,000 members. And since building her community, she started helping other companies build an audience around their products and services as a community engagement consultant. After mentoring so many women over the last decade, she started a formal coaching practice aimed to support high-earning women in male-dominated fields who struggle with thoughts of wanting to quit due to loneliness, struggles with confidence, and resentment of the sacrifices that they had to make to have a successful, lucrative career. Her mission with all of her businesses is to support all women at every level so that they can continue to fight for the inequity that exists in the world. And I have to tell you, from my point of view, she's, amazing. All these things that we've said, they're really true. I lived them myself. She has been also called one of the most influential Facebook leaders at some point. She's been featured in places like the New York Times. She's been on panels with Sheryl Sandberg. She works with UNICEF. She's a breast cancer advocate. On top of that, she's been a mom of 5 children. I only have 1 set of twins. She has 2 set of twins. And I don't know how she does it and still looks beautiful. And
oh my goodness. You're making me tired. I'm like, wait a second.
That's it. That was the introduction. That was the introduction. How are you today? Thank you for being here.
I'm doing really well. I'm doing fantastic. It's funny. I just hired a new admin assistant who I'm hoping will be with me forever because she's so amazing. And every time I ask her how she's doing, she goes, still having the best day ever. And I just love that. I love it. So, you know what? It's a perfect day. I'm alive and I'm here to give more value and to have this beautiful conversation with you this morning, which we already had a little mini conversation before.
Yeah, we're going to have that one as a bonus at the end. It's like, it was amazing.
So good. Yeah. It really was. Coaching, it was so good.
Coaching session by Dr. Hala Sabri.
Oh, impromptu coaching session.
Well, yes. Let's talk about, because, we've mentioned tons of things here that can make one tired, like, how do you do it all? But it wasn't like that at the beginning. And we were like, these things happen, but they happen in an order, right? It wasn't by chance. And we want to start first with the little girl or the teenager or whoever was that got inspired first by medicine. Who was that?
That's so funny. I was just telling my husband the story the other day because we were at my kid's soccer game, and my daughter, she's really good at soccer. Okay. She's really athletic, but you could tell, she does not care. She doesn't particularly like soccer, but if her dad is there at the game, she's always looking over and then she'll go score a goal. She just dominates the field. Right. But if my husband's not there, she is picking the grass off the floor and she does not care. Right. And so he was she's only doing this to impress me. And I was like, yeah. And I said, we really should have a conversation with her because I was that girl with my dad. And he was like, what do you mean? And I said, growing up, there was 2 things I consistently lied to my dad about. And one thing was what salad dressing I liked. Every time I would order salad, we would order salad with every meal whenever we would go out to eat. And that was an important thing for my family, that we have some vegetables beforehand. They didn't care what else I ordered, but every time the waitress or waiter would say like, oh, what would you like on your salad? And I would say blue cheese. And he would always look at me because blue cheese is his favorite. And he'd be like, that's my girl. Right. And I literally would order blue cheese just to hear that every single time. Right. But secretly, I hate blue cheese. I hate blue cheese so much. I would eat it though. I would. And finally, when I was 16, I was like, F it. I'm ordering ranch because that's exactly what I want. And so I ordered ranch and my dad was like, what? And I'm like, Dad, I got to be honest with you. And he was like, what? And I said, I hate blue cheese. Now, mind you, I've been eating blue cheese since I was like 6 years old. Right. And so he was like, what do you mean you hate blue cheese? And I'm like, Dad, I really just hate blue cheese. I was only doing it to get the accolades from you. And he was like, oh my gosh. And he was like, well, what else do you do this with? I'll love you whether you like ranch or blue cheese, and I was like, no, that's it. That's the only thing. But that's not true. I actually would also say I want to be a doctor just like him. And I did not want to tell him that was a lie as well. That was like my second blue cheese, right? And so I lived this lie growing up that I wanted to be a doctor because, my dad, every time I'd say it, he was like, yep, just like her father, and I lived this lie through college. Like I went and got a bio degree and everything. And I graduated early from college because I hated it. I hated college, I thought science was interesting and I was good at it. Just like my daughter, right? She's good on the field, right? She just doesn't necessarily particularly like it, at least that's what we think. And so, so I kind of like convinced myself maybe I'd want something in the sciences, but I really like business, I really like the operational business, like just the operations of business, like, just making it more efficient.
Did you ever work at your dad's medical practice in any way?
No, my dad was emergency medicine, which is not why I went into emergency medicine, but he was emergency medicine. So I would go shadow him at work a lot. And I thought it was interesting. It's not that I hated medicine or anything like that. I thought it was interesting. I just couldn't see myself doing it because I have a couple of reasons, but mainly because my dad was so miserable. Like, yes, he thought his job was cool, right? But man, when he came home, okay, he was like, okay, first of all, the place had to be, this might be a personality issue too, but like the place had to be immaculate, right? He wanted no noise. He wanted us to ask no questions because when you're at work, you're just asked over and over, Dr. Sabri, what about this EKG? Bed 8, do you have the discharge? Blah, 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 right? So the last thing he wants is when, coming home and he has that. So I learned when I was little, don't bug dad for at least 12 to 24 hours until he comes home. He also used to do like 24 or 36 hour shifts. This is in the 80s, you guys, right? This is a long time ago. And so I was like, dude, my dad seems kind of miserable. Like, why would I want this? And, now I look back and I think he was like really burnt out. And so I remember 9/11 happened. I was, I think I was like 21, I think. I don't know. I have to do the math. I was around 21. I already was finished with medical school and, I was working at Disneyland in operations management, right? Like, hence my love for
So you graduated from biology.
Yeah, I graduated from biology, but I worked at Disney. I worked in like their middle management, basically. Okay. Loved it, and I wanted to grow my career there. And my dad was like, just like, no, like you are a very expensive child. You love a very expensive life, and this is not going to give it to you. Right. And I don't want you to ever be stuck or depend on a man or anything like that. Like, I really want you to go to medical school. So anyways, 9/11 happens. You guys, I'm Egyptian and I'm Muslim. Okay. So we're sitting here watching 9/11 in shock. Right. And then they're bringing up all of the pilots. Like, I think there's 6 of them or something. I don't remember now, but they're like Egyptian, Muslim. Right. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Right. I mean, I was born and raised here and we're a religious family, but like, that's not religious. Like, whatever they're practicing is like some crazy BS. Right. And so my dad is like crying. He's like, I came to this country for you to have a better opportunity. And he really thought we were going to end up, Muslim people in this country, we're going to end up in concentration camps. I mean, we didn't, but we ended up with lots of discrimination, up until now even. Right. And so, but yeah, I mean, like we were scared. We were scared of these people too. I mean, this is like, it's terror. Right. And so my dad was like, the one thing that made sense that my dad said, was you need to go into medicine because you need to be an example of what it's like to be a brown Egyptian Muslim person, like truly, because what's happening on TV right now is just not what's happening. Like, we, just like every other faith and every other culture, like as any other human, right? Like we want to do good. We want to have positive effect on the community. And he's like, you need to get out there. And I was like, you know what, Dad, I'm on with that. And he's like, he's like, why are you so resistant to go into medicine? I'm like, because Dad, honestly, you don't seem very happy. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, you don't seem happy. All you do is complain. Right. And so he's like, you're right. I do complain. He's like, but here's the thing. He was like, our generation messed up. Okay. He said that his generation literally handed over medicine to insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies because they thought it was too hard for them to manage both. Okay. This is in the 80s and 90s, right?
And it's true.
He's like, it is up to you, especially because you love business so much. It's up to your generation to fix it. Okay. So this is how I showed up to my medical school interviews, you guys. Okay. My dad told me before I went to my medical school interviews, do not lie. Okay. As physicians, we interview people tens of times a day. Okay. We are master interviewers. Do not lie. Okay. So I was like, okay. So the first question, okay, why do you want to be a doctor? I'm like, fuck, like, okay, I can't lie, right? Like I can't lie. So I'm like, well, technically I don't, right? So they're like, what? And I said, I want to advocate for doctors. I really love business. I do like science and I would love to be a doctor, but I really want to use my career to advocate for other physicians. And I kind of explained my story with my dad. Anyways, I got into medical schools. They were like, what? Yes, save us. Right. And so I went to a medical school that had an attached business school. And so I got both degrees with the goal that I was going to be a CEO of a hospital and save people like my dad. And then when I was going through, my business degree, which I have a specialization in health management, I started noticing like the operations of businesses where, where's the biggest moneymaker, right? It's surgical. I mean, the way that you get into the hospital, right? It's surgery and ER, right? So that's why I chose emergency medicine. I mean, although I love every specialty, it's just the perfect specialty for me, right? But it also was a business decision. And so, so I went into medicine really to practice business, but, fell in love with medicine on the way. So now I was just complaining to you before we even started, podcasting. I just can't wait to get back into practice. Right now, I'm not practicing because I have had multiple surgeries and I'm still healing from that. But I cannot wait until I'm put back into medicine. I'm just so excited to go back. But you guys, my dream did not come true. I did not become a CEO. I swiftly found out.
I differ, right? You're not a CEO of the hospital.
No, not CEO of the hospital. Yeah, I'm a CEO of a lot of other things. That's exactly. Awesome, right? My dream is bigger. My dream is bigger now, But it's funny though, because, what they didn't teach me in medical school is, sexism is rampant, right? And there's a reason why we don't see C-suite leaders be women, or often if they're women, they have roles that are not as like powerful, right? It's like, some kind of role that, is like some secondary role. And so I had my first baby. I was a second year attending. I was on 6 different committees. I've told them from the day one, I want to be, in hospital leadership. And they're like, okay, great. Because nobody else wants to do that, So then a directorship opened and I happened to be on my first maternity leave, which I took 5 weeks. And they told me, we're not going to give it to you. We're going to give it to your male counterpart. That's my junior that I recruited to our site. And they said, because you just had a baby and you probably want to be a good mom. And I was like, wait a second, you're my medical director. You have a 7-year-old. The guy you're putting into my position has a 1-year-old. So I'm not really sure how that's okay that you guys get to be crappy dads and I need to be a good mom. I don't understand that. And so anyways, that's what started with my resentment with medicine really initially. And so as a big FU to medicine, I created the largest women's movement that exists right now in this day and age of physician moms group. And through that, I realized I'm not actually that mad at medicine. I think I'm just mad at the patriarchy, which exists in every single industry. And I started kind of finding my way. And the last time you and I talked, we were talking about that pivot point for me of deciding, is that resentment or whatever that negative feeling I was feeling, was it burnout? Was it something else? And that's where we were last time when we talked.
Yeah. And I think your whole story comes around, we have different pillars in what we're teaching. And one of them is vision. And your vision was clear from the beginning. Yeah. So for anything that we do, that should be like our first thing, clear our vision, what we want out of life, what we want to portray, what we want our legacy to be. to ourselves, for our family, our community, what we want. That, and that, like, you were like that person from the beginning. You went to that interview saying that, and you didn't become the CEO of a hospital, but you become the CEO of so many other things that still are within that vision. And you really haven't changed who you are and who you want to be. You have changed how you accomplish this dream and how you deliver it. And when we talked about the last time you came to our group as a coach to our group, talking about precisely this, what happens when physicians are getting overwhelmed? What's the real problem? And that's a problem that we have to identify, because it can be treated in many ways in the same way and many ways in the different way. So we have to see if it's really burnout, or when we finally are done with all this studying, with a little Disneyland detour or not, we are really where people usually get either midlife crisis and mid-career crisis, right? For you, at that moment, what do you think it was?
I think it was a lot of things. I mean, I think that we can't easily put people in buckets. I think it's really easy for medicine to do that because we work on algorithms, so you have to be part of one arrow for algorithm, right? Like you can't be in two different areas, right? And so I think it's easy for
your
us
body part.
Yeah.
Your body part. Here's the chest pain, or here's the fracture of the ankle, or whatever it is.
I'm only going to work up that part right now, And so, and I think, medicine gives so much like buzzwords of like burnout and resilience and all this other stuff, right? And so I think I started convincing myself maybe I was burnt out, but actually that's not true. I wasn't burnt out because I mean, there's a lot of ways of defining burnout. So I'm not a burnout specialist, you guys. I don't coach on burnout, but I will say that no matter how it's defined, like at the end of the day, the result is someone who really honestly is defeated and does not want to do anything, okay, at all. And that's not where I was at. I was fighting to do more, And so people are like, gosh,
pleased out.
Yeah. I was like, you know what? Like, if I can't be the CEO of the hospital, I need to figure out what I'm going to do, because my goal is to advocate for doctors. And if it's not going to happen here, and I started realizing, like, why am I trying to be the CEO of this one little hospital, right? Like, how is that really going to change things globally, right? And so I started dreaming bigger. But so I don't really think I was burnt out, which there's nothing wrong with being burnt out at all. Nothing wrong with it. I was just not.
There's no shame
there.
in it. Like,
there's no shame. No.
Problem that
it's a real
happens.
thing.
Yeah.
And so I remember, hiring a therapist, and I was like, telling her, I was like, I'm not burnt out. I really just want to do something more. And so she's a great therapist and everything, nothing against her. And I still go to therapy regularly. So you guys, like, therapy is great. Psychiatry is great. Coaching is great. They're not mutually exclusive to one another. They are all additive ways of dealing with your brain. But I remember kind of feeling like I had like a 1% problem, like a first, kind of world problem, like the way that, she was kind of like almost like, she didn't say this, but what I was hearing was like, why are you making problems for yourself? Like, you have, I was making, $500,000-$600,000 as an emergency medicine physician in California. They're very well, compensated. I had, this growing family. We were going on all the dream vacations that we wanted, right? Like, all the things were okay. And I still was not fulfilled. And that's exactly what I kept telling her. Like, I'm not fulfilled. And she was like, oh my God, girl, what's going to make you fulfilled? Right. And that's where I was so confused, because I'm like, I'm not burnt out. I'm just not fulfilled. What does that mean? And so I started doing more research. I was like, okay, like, I started becoming like the patient that's like on WebMD, like every single day. Right. And I'm like, what the heck is this that I'm feeling? And so then finally I kind of started coming across like very little resources on midlife crisis. Well, not really midlife crisis, but more mid-career crisis. And so I was like, what the heck are the differences between these two? Because I kind of thought it's the same. But midlife crisis is really, both men and women hit it around the 5th decade of our life. And it really has to do with like, physiological or age-related changes. Meaning, like, with men, usually when they hit 50, they start realizing, I'm not going to live to 100, most likely. I mean, who knows with medicine? I mean, that could happen.
We're working on that. Anti-aging.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, they hit 50 and they're like, oh my gosh, I hit 50. right? And they're like, and so they think two things. One is, oh my God, I don't want to be 50. I want to be younger, right? And so that's where all the stereotypes come from. Like, getting the faster car and putting hair plugs in and finding a younger wife or, partner or whatever it may be. And then they also start thinking financially, like, okay, I only have 15 more years until I, traditionally retire. Do I have enough money? Right. And so that's how men, this is a generality, you guys, but this is how men usually approach midlife. Women, on the other hand, midlife crisis is usually timed with menopause, which on average is age 51, but people can have it earlier or later. But that's usually a real big mind game with like, what is this definition of me as a woman? I've been working all my life to be fertile and to raise kids. And now that is not, that part is over. Anyhow, and women are not like really trying to be younger, at 50, like they've been doing that since they were like 29. So that's been like there forever. Right. But their thoughts are more like, what is my purpose? Like, what is, as a woman, like that's really what they're thinking. Now, mid-career crisis is different for both men and women because mid-career crisis usually happens at the same time for men, as midlife crisis. They're like, oh, well, I want to be younger, but also what's happening with my career, I got to maximize it for the next 15 years. Women, their mid-career crisis happens about 10 years earlier, especially for professional women, around the ages between 35 and 40. And I really think it's more timed when they're done with professional school, because most people spend their 20s and early 30s in professional school. We're talking about like, doctors, lawyers, dentists, engineers, and all these, other really high powered professions that they're doing specialty and subspecialties and stuff like that. And they get out, right? And they're like, okay, well, what's my purpose now? What am I going to do with all of this? Right? Like, what's my purpose? And I think it's really, really fascinating that, women, because we're so community oriented just by nature, not saying that you have to put into your community, but just by nature we are. It's like more thinking about our legacy, although we're not thinking of it as that. We're just like kind of thinking of it as more of unfulfillment, or what am I really doing? Whether that's the impact on your family or your career or your community, whatever it may be. And so I was there. That's exactly where I was at, and I just, and it gave me a sense of relief, like that I had like an answer, but then I was like, okay, great. Like I'm in mid-career crisis. Now what? And so like I didn't really have a mentor. I didn't have anyone. I was like, well, what the hell do I do right now? Right. And so, my therapist is awesome, but she thinks I'm like creating problems for myself. My work is like, just go see more patients. Like, I don't understand what the hell's wrong with you. Right. My husband's like, I don't get it. Like, you make so much money. And like, I was working very little. I had like a lot of admin days and things like that. Anyways, so I was like, well, I don't know, like, what is my purpose? Like, what's the evolution and of my career? And that's something that was a new thing for me, because I thought you became a doctor and you're a doctor for the rest of your life, or whatever it is your profession is. Like, that's just what you've destined to do until you died.
It defines you. People think that being a doctor, and I'm going to be a doctor forever, and that's the definition, and there's no way out of there. Mm-hmm. And that's all you have to be. And it's I found actually that very early in my career, when I was studying, where we would talk about different other different skills, and then people would just box it. But what are you doing? How can you think like that? Like, you're supposed to just be this. And then boxing you, the same way that we talk about you're a chest pain that's coming through the door, you're a broken ankle that's coming through the door, boxing yourself. So then you created this group at that point, PMG, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, PMG happened earlier. Like, I think I created PMG really from a place of pain. Like, hey, how do I manage having a career and kids, right? And then it turns out like nobody really knew the answer. So like, so that was good to normalize it. Right. But then, here's the thing though, I felt like I didn't have control over my life before I started PMG. Then I started PMG and I started feeling okay with the fact that I didn't feel control that I had my entire life. But then now, not only was I in control of my entire life, but also in control of this group that, I think when it hit like 40,000 people, I was like, holy crap. Like, I have a lot of responsibility.
I remember when you started asking for administrators for the group, and I really thought about it, because then you don't know what the commitment's going to be and all this stuff. So I really thought about becoming an administrator for the group. And then I've known the stories of you not wanting to continue the group at times because it's been, getting out of hand when you cannot control that many people.
Well, the truth is I couldn't control myself, right? Like you can never, ever control other people's behavior. All you can do is control your own thoughts and feelings. And I think that's why coaching is so important, you know? And that's where I really actually, you know, when I started kind of really having a lot of like confusion over really, what do I want to do? You know, do I want to continue PMG? Do I want to continue being a doctor? Do I want to do a third thing? Like, what do I want to do? And I was so confused. And so I remember like meeting with one of the executives at Facebook, and he was like, hey, how's it going? And I was like, the truth? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, horrible. It's going horrible. It's going horribly. Like, I am not happy. I feel so much pressure. I feel like I live in a fishbowl. Everybody like is seeing what I'm doing and I can't make a mistake of all these things. Right. And he was like, and he kind of just smiled and he was like, yep, sounds like a community leader. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, well, look, I have 2 recommendations for you. He recommended a book. And then he recommended I hire a coach. Now, I didn't even know what a coach was. And I was so embarrassed that like, I wasn't going to ask him. So I just tabled it. Like, I just was like, okay. Right. So I moved on, whatever. So then years later, I started seeing physician coaches. Okay. There was 2 of them. And their marketing was on coaching burnout. And I don't know what these coaches, these 2 specific people do exactly, but from the outside, okay, from a marketing issue, okay, or stance, what I saw was, you're burnt out. Let me help you get out of medicine, right? And my whole thing was, I'm not burnt out, and I want to keep women in medicine. So why would I leave, right? So I had a real like negative like feeling towards coaching. I was like, this is some BS. I'm not signing up, right? So a couple of years later, I started seeing a little bit more coaches, and then a friend of mine became a coach, and I was like, are you trying to get people to leave medicine? Because I think I might have to break up my friendship with you, you know? And he's just like, no, that has nothing to do with coaching. And I was like, well, what is it? And so that's when I started getting into coaching a little bit. And I realized that I was already listening to coaches. I was listening to Brene Brown. I was listening to Tony Robbins. I was listening to all these people. It's really just having control over your thoughts and feelings. And I didn't realize that. And I think that the uniqueness of having a coach that has a profession like you is like, they really understand your thoughts. I mean, you don't have to explain yourself so much, right? And sometimes they understand your thoughts and they know you a little bit more than you know yourself, right? And they've seen so many transformations that, not that they come in with an agenda, but they just see what's possible for you. It's a little bit different, you know? Although there's benefit of having non-physician coaches too, because it's a true objective opinion as well. So, I mean, I have a physician coach and a non-physician coach. I spend a lot of money on coaching because it is definitely something that has saved my career. And when I decided to become a coach, it actually really wasn't to coach anybody else at all. It really was to help me in my consulting career. So the evolution of my career was that I thought I wanted to do consulting. I already had so many companies emailing me like, I want to pick your brain on this, you know? And I'm like, ugh, like, I just want to charge for this, but I didn't know how to charge for it, you know? And so kind of creating that business. But I kind of thought, if my coaches can hear me the way they do, I want that skill set to be able to hear these companies, because I will be a very successful consultant. And that is exactly why I went to coaching school.
So you're telling us that you really became a coach so that you could help your consulting, not really coaching others. And how did that help you?
Well, so I mean, great. I mean, I'm a very successful consultant. I actually don't consult anymore in the way I used to. We're talking about, you guys, I just created my consulting business like 3 years ago. Okay. So this is not like I've had this business for 10 years. I mean, yes, I've been growing my skill set. Yes, I've been growing my audience for a long time, but this consulting business, I opened up my doors 3 years ago, and immediately I was fully booked immediately. Okay. And consulting work is freaking hard, you guys. It is amazing and it's so awesome, but it's hard. It's a hard skill set. And I had to get used to it a little bit. But then I started noticing, like, I was really helping companies like grow, which is awesome. That's what I want to do, right? But recently I started realizing I don't want to take every consulting gig. You know, so now I'm a little bit more strategic. So either I'm going to learn a new skill set, or it's going to be a new experience for me where I get to grow my portfolio. But now I'm consulting really for equity of their company, because my whole thing is, if I'm teaching you how to grow, I want to grow with you. So if I'm a part owner of your company, even if it's a very minority owner, or I'm on an advisory board, like, I will help you grow and I will put my love and my heart into it. And so it's been really fun, especially because, as I think about my legacy, as you kind of mentioned that earlier, what is my legacy? And I hope what my legacy is that I would have fought for women to create more equity for themselves, And so I kind of want this like legacy portfolio of equity. And so when I think about that, like, how does that show up with, the 6 avenues that we express our values in our life, right? It's like, how does that show up with my, with my health, with my money, with my career, with my romantic relationships with my husband, right? My relationship with my friends and family and community, right? And my spirituality. So when I think about that, when I think about the career and the money aspect, like, being part of companies and helping them scale and grow by having them understand how to create a community around their product or service, that's everything for them, right? They can have the best product and service and not know how to create a community around that, right? And nurture that. So when I help those communities grow in that way, and I'm part of that, that's just giving me a little bit more equity, not only in their company, but also in the stake of the impact that they're creating, And so that's just one way I create equity for myself in my career. And obviously I own my own coaching business and things like that. But, I can go down the line and I can tell you exactly how I'm doing it. And so kind of what you were talking about before is like that confusion and overwhelm, like, oh my gosh, like sometimes doctors, you might be listening to this being like, oh my God, Hala's off the wall. Like, or that's awesome that Hala's doing this, but that's not going to be available to me because I'm just so stuck in it, right? Like, you're driving to work right now and you're probably like, T minus 20 minutes until, you get to work and, shit's going to hit the fan. But here's the thing. I want to say this, okay? Is you don't get in the car and think you want to take a road trip, okay? And don't put a destination in the GPS. You do not do that, okay? And say you want to do a road trip to like across the country and you live in California and you're going to put in New York or something like that. At least you have a destination. Now, your trip from California to New York might take many pit stops. Okay. You might be like, oh, I really wanted to go see this thing in Texas. Oh, I really wanted to go see this thing in Idaho or whatever. You might go in this twisty turvy way, but you will eventually get to New York. Okay. Now here's the thing. We don't really put that in the GPS. Like we did when we were 18, we're like, we want to be a doctor, but then there was no other GPS point after that. Right. You don't get to New York and then go, I guess I'm just going to live here forever. You might say like, I want to go back home because I never actually like packed up my stuff. You might decide that, you're going to move to a third place, or what are you going to do in New York? Like, you're still going to get around New York. You're still going to go to different places, So I think that like just taking that step back and understanding what do you want to do? Now, before you do that, okay, please don't choose that destination from a place of pain. Okay. Please do not do that, because that's like getting out of a really bad relationship, okay? And your next boyfriend or girlfriend just seems so amazing because they're just not like the last person, okay? That doesn't mean that next person is the best person for you. It's just they're not the last person, okay? So what I think coaching is really good, especially if you find a really good burnout coach or whatever, whoever you resonate with, right? Then you can get to a place of neutrality, okay? And that's where I got first. Right? That's where I got first. I got to a place of neutrality and I made a decision from that place. So then I started asking myself, okay, well, what do I want to do with my career? What do I want to do with my medical career? What do I want to do with PMG? And the truth was, I still wanted to practice medicine. I never left, you guys. A lot of people just assume I left clinical medicine. I never left medicine, right? Everything I'm doing is in addition to it, right? Because medicine is my foundation for everything else I built, right? Even though it was initially built on a lie, now it's built on truth, right? But, my dad's not even around anymore. He passed away right before I started medical school, actually, ironically. But like, here I am now, right? And medicine is my base, right? Because I want it to be, not because it's so much part of my identity that I can't break away from it. Not that at all, but I really love it. There's so much I love about it, right? And like I was telling you before we even take this podcast, like, I think what I see the full circle here is everything I do is really to help marginalized communities at the end of the day. The more money I have in my hand, the more equity I have in my hand, the more money and equity I help women create, statistically speaking, if we close that wealth gap that happens in this nation, and not just in this nation, in the world, okay? Statistically speaking, when you look at women and what they do with money is they reinvest it in their family and communities. So just like I practice medicine, I choose to practice medicine in lower socioeconomic areas because that's where I think I make the most impact. Okay. What I'm doing with my coaching is really helping the 1% super successful people, because if I can help them stay in their careers, okay, like you mentioned in my bio, and we talked about before we even taped this podcast, there's 3 major Achilles heels for, if you could have multiple heels, whatever, for successful people. Okay. So what makes successful people quit? Now, I'm not talking about burnout, you guys. I'm saying what makes successful people quit. Okay. First thing, exhaustion and loneliness. Now, maybe burnout fits into that a little bit, but when you isolate yourself and you're so freaking tired, you do not make good decisions. Okay. I'm just saying, right? So quitting seems so much easier. Okay. Quitting can look like, F it, I'm out of this clinic. Okay. Or it can look like, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to quit on my dream. Okay. The second thing is confidence. Every single one of you listening to this, okay, had to have balls of confidence, okay, to get to where you are right now. But the thing is that I think we had this idea that once we got to where we were, we could kind of relax a bit. Right. But the problem is that the maintenance of that confidence is so much more like difficult. Okay. And nobody tells you that. Okay. So sometimes it's a confidence issue, and not saying that like people are not confident and that's a bad thing, but it's the truth, right? We have a confidence issue, right? Like, why do people not go for their dreams? Well, they don't feel confident, right? That's why your program is so amazing, because you help them with the confidence, because you give them every objection. Like, well, I really don't know what I want to do. I really don't know what the vision, I really think I'm a failure. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. I don't know the business aspect. I don't know the money. You're like, here, I'm going to give you all the answers, right? You just have to show up, right? That's the number 2. Okay. So loneliness, exhaustion, confidence. And the last thing is resentment, right? It's like, gosh, why should I do anything else? Why should I continue what I'm doing or do anything more when I freaking sacrificed so much to get here, right? I don't go to birthday parties. I can't sometimes go to weddings. I'm on freaking call. I didn't get to go do that bucket list vacation because I don't have the freaking money, because I had to blah, 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 blah. Like, name it, it's there. Okay. Now, if you're lonely, exhausted, you're not feeling confident, okay, you're feeling resentful, these 3 things will cause your downfall. So if this resonates with you, get a therapist, get a coach. If you think you need to be evaluated by a psychiatrist, please do all the things, okay? Because we need to protect your brain. We need to protect your success, okay? Because so many people depend on it, not just yourself, okay? But especially if you're a woman, and I know no shade to the men, I want you to be super successful, but this is for the women. Like, society on top of those 3 things puts up so many freaking barriers for us. Okay. And if we're really going to fight equity, like fight the patriarchy with more equity, like our brains have to be in the freaking game. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why, like, when I look at PMG, I love PMG so much. Okay. It's my baby. Okay. But the reason why I decided to make another community, okay, 1% Women's Club, is because I feel like PMG is really great to get you from that like survival mode to like neutral and even into thriving mode, you know? And I think what 1% Women's Club is really for people who really want coaching, right? To kind of go through that same process I did. I went from like miserable to confused to now I'm like, what more could I do? Like, this is so amazing. I'm so energized by it. Right. And I think that if we create this, like this army, okay, of women that are so well coached and already successful, okay, I think we'll make them more emotionally available. This is my hypothesis, that they will be more emotionally available, not only to create more value in the world and create more wealth, but also to mentor other women, especially women who don't look like them, okay, that are not well represented in these successful spaces, to make it more diverse and truly more equitable for all women. And so this is why I've decided this new community to start it.
So now, Hala Sabri, today, when we're filming this, October 2022, after seeing your previous therapists, your husband, when you were telling them that you're not satisfied despite having all these things, it reminds me of Hamilton in a sense. That song is, will he ever be satisfied? How do you find yourself after this transformation that you've described to us? And what do they tell you these days after you've achieved the things that you've achieved? First, that therapist that you had, like, said that you're creating problems for yourself. Have you talked to them again? And what is your husband telling you? What does he see these days from you?
Oh my gosh. First of all, thank you for the reference to Hamilton, because that's my pump up music, that same song that you mentioned. And the second song that I love off of that track is the last one, where you learn all the things that Hamilton left as his legacy that you didn't even know about. The Coast Guard, the Washington Post, creating the entire banking system, whether we like it or not, right? And he was like, when he was in power, you guys, he was like 23, okay? Like, young guy, right? And we look back and we're able to really appreciate his greatness now. Like, I think that my legacy, my effects, like what you're going to see, and I hope I live the most longest life ever, right? But I really think my ROI, my return on investment, is going to be after I die. It's going to help the next, couple of generations, and then I'm hoping to pass the baton of what I do to other people so they can continue it, right? True leaders, in my opinion, create more leaders. They do not create more followers. So for me, this is my mantra of life. Okay. So I just want to thank you for referencing Hamilton, because it is something that is near and dear to me. And I remember watching Hamilton around the time that I was thinking about coaching, and tears streaming down my face, because I just so identified with a lot of the words of some of the songs, of this idea of like, what else does he want? Why is he not satisfied? I'm like, I know, me too, Hamilton, me too. Right. Like, I was in the audience. Right. So thank you. So, okay. So your next question was, what does my husband think? I think that was your last question, but my husband
your therapist.
My therapist. Oh, she retired.
The one that said, oh, you're creating problems for yourself. You're like, what's going on?
So she retired. She's not my therapist anymore. But my current therapist, I don't know. I don't know what she thinks, actually. I have no idea. I should probably ask her. But my current therapist, she's awesome. And I have, my current coach, she's so cute. She has a lot of belief in me, and she is always encouraging me. And even though I help people dream bigger and I dream big, she helps me even dream bigger than I can, so shout out to Sonia Wright. You are the most amazing physician coach. I love you. She really helped me.
She's amazing. She's been a coach for us too.
She's really, really amazing. Because the things that hold me back might be different a little bit than other people. But that's a whole nother podcast. But Sonia is really fantastic. And, so anyways, but my husband, I think, my changes in myself actually were contagious. Like, he started thinking about really what he wanted for himself, really early on. And he started seeing me do amazing things. And he's like, well, if she could do it, why not me? He's sitting there going to the same job every day. So my husband's an aerospace engineer, and he works in human space flight. That was his dream from when he was like 8. And so he's living his dream. Right. But like any other job, you can work in jobs where you just feel like you're a cog in the wheel. And that's exactly how he felt, and he really wanted to have more impact, and he didn't know how. And so he actually, it's funny, full circle here, because I know you've had Letty and Kenji, on your podcast, but we had signed up for their course, and their first module, there was like one little slide on limiting beliefs. And my husband had never heard that term before at that time. And he was like, limiting beliefs. So he was pairing that with what I was doing with my life. And so he was like, I think I'm going to try to find another job, or try to figure out if I'm going to open up my own business. I was like, okay, go ahead, do what you got to do. Anyways, long story short, 5 months later, he's like, we're moving to Seattle. Right. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Right. So now we live in Seattle. He works in human spaceflight still, but he's an executive now, after a couple of different promotions and things over the last 2 years, but he works for Jeff Bezos. He's in meetings with Jeff very often, and it's really cool to see him at that high level, talking to the most, richest man in the world. I guess sometimes it's Elon Musk, sometimes it's him, who knows, whatever. Anyways, they fight for that position, but it's really neat to see him with such confidence. And right now, like even I was having a conversation with him. So my husband, what he does is he's one of the directors of one of the engines. And so there's kind of three pieces to a whole rocket. So he has managed two of those three pieces. And so he's managed one, he's about to manage a second one. And so I asked him, I was like, well, what do you want to do with your career? He's like, I want to manage the whole rocket. Like, and he told me all the reasons why. And they're really amazing reasons. And it has nothing to do with money, you guys, even though lots of money comes along with that. But, it's just so neat to see that transformation for him and to be able to have like conversations at that level. And it's so funny because my kids, like so I just want to share this story because I think it's so amazing. Okay, you guys, our kids have no idea what the hell we do. Like, not because like they are not interested, but like they see us home a lot. Like we go to all their soccer games.
How old are they right now at the time of this recording?
9, 7, 7, 4, 4. Okay. And so like what I'm going to give you two stories really quick. And it's going to show you this is just hilarious, right? So my husband and I, despite all that we're doing, we're like, we want to be really present for our kids. Okay. We definitely want to be around. We don't want to be these absent people. We want to create our life that we still have, really good, kind of carved out time for family. And we had to define what that was. What does that mean? Okay. And so we had to define what that was for us. Okay. So we do that. Okay. So our kids really, their thoughts are that we're always home. We're always with them. And that's not true, but they think it's true. Okay. So last year, my mother-in-law was with us and she had a little bit of a URI, not COVID, but URI. And so she was complaining about congestion. I went to the pharmacy. I got her 2 different medications and I was explaining the mechanism of action to her because she's the kind of woman that doesn't want to take any kind of medication. She just wants to complain about her symptoms. So I'm like, listen, like here's medication A, here's medication B.
Here, mother-in-law, if you listen to this, there's something that we have to work on.
Oh my God. She's so awesome though. I love her. She's like the best person. She's like my mom, really. And so I'm like, here's 1, here's 2, right? And my son's laying on the bed. Okay. And my son at this point is, I don't know, 6, 7, whatever. Maybe he just turned 7. So, so I'm showing her. And so my son was like, Mom, like, how do you know all this stuff? Right.
What?
And so my mother-in-law was like, she's a doctor. Right. And then he starts laughing. He goes, no, you're not, Mom. And I said, why do you think I'm not a doctor? And he goes, well, I don't see you ever going to the hospital. And part of that is true, you guys, because, I have been having some surgery. Right. But like, I go to the hospital a lot. Like, I have scrubs, I have white coats, I have all of this stuff. Right. So it's just so interesting, that's his thought process. And even, after that happened, I went to breakfast with my oldest kids, the 9, 7, 7, those ages. And I asked them, like, do you guys know what mommy does for a living? And my eldest goes, well, you're a doctor, but you also have a girl group. Right. That's what she knows. Right. And I was like, yes, I do have a gang. Basically, I'm a gang. Like,
what do you do with your gang, with your girls?
I know.
Well,
because she's been to my conferences and stuff and she's seen the logo enough times, so, but she doesn't know really what it is, but she was like, and I don't talk about work with them. I mean, not that for any other reason besides I try to like really be present and like read their stuff, like, read books to them and things like that, and talk about school and make the conversation about them more than about me, but yeah. So yeah, she's like, well, you're a doctor and you have a girl group. Right. And so my son's just like eating his little cinnamon roll, like just staring at me. Right. And my other daughter, I said, well, what kind of doctor am I, you guys? I just want to know if they know. Because remember, by the age of 6, I was like, I knew what my dad was doing, and I would tell everybody that that's what I'm doing too, right?
So like maybe a good one.
So, well, I hope that they think I'm a good one. So my oldest goes, well, you're a doctor for everything, which is true. Okay, which is true, I will say, right? But she doesn't know that there's like all these specialties, I guess. So then my other doctor goes, no, you do emergency, you're in the emergency room, right? I said, yeah. And my son's just like looking at me like, oh yeah, right? Like, no problem, right? But it's just so funny. And I was like, well, what does daddy do? And then they're like, I don't know, like something with rockets. Like they really have no clue. Like, and I mean, in some ways I think that's good. Some ways I don't think that's good. Right. But, eventually they'll grow up and they'll figure it out, but I just love that they just think that we're home a lot. And my husband does not work from home, you guys, but he's home by the time they're home, So, I mean, there's the amount of flexibility that he's fought for and he's created, and the life that we've created for ourselves. Like I could not be happier. And so what I want to show you guys is that it doesn't matter what my path looked like. I hope what you take from this is not what I did and comparing that to your situation. I just want you to see how I did it and know that that is available for you. And I think truly, if there was a program like what I created for people and what you've created for people, with Max Alora's mastermind, I'm not sure exactly what you're calling it right now, but with that container, okay, I, remember what I was asking myself is I just want someone to show me how to do it. And now there's so many resources for people to show you. And so I think that, if you're listening to this, like, please take advantage of whether it's our two programs, it's somebody else's program, like just go and change a variable in your life, because nothing will change unless you change something.
Yeah, don't leave it to others to control your life. Like Hala hasn't done that. I've been burnout. I was in midlife career crisis. It was really burnout. And for a period of time, I really allowed others to control my life, because I was there when you're just tired. You become, like you're lonely and exhausted. And I lived through that, but we don't have to. We have found ways out of that. There's no shame on having been there. First, you've seen how Hala had her vision. And right now she's designed a lifestyle for her that she really likes to live, and she follows wellness for her family, developing her mindset, and then developing all these other knowledge that she had for her finance and her business, and how she wants to live and leave that legacy. So these are all things that people can do. We have to understand what the problem is and then get help and act upon it. So thank you for being here. I do want to tell everybody that they cannot see you right now, but you're wearing on your chest.
Oh, yes.
You're wearing on your chest. Can you tell people and why you're wearing that on your chest?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay. So I'm wearing this necklace that has the magic, the castle. It's actually Cinderella's castle. It's from Disney World. It's actually like a time limited piece, but yeah, and I wear this not only because I'm a Disney fanatic, you guys, if any of you follow me on Facebook, but here's the thing. I worked for Disney for 8 years. And I will say, if any of you have done a business degree, and, I'm not telling you guys to do a business degree, but you'll see that they'll use certain companies as case studies, consistently. I don't know what they're using now, because I did my MBA 20 years ago, but at that time they were using Disney and Starbucks a lot, and Disney is just an amazing company. They have a lot of issues. Yes. And whatever. But yeah, but their values, they actually are a values-based company, and every employee or cast member rather learns those values like on day one: safety, show, courtesy. They have now inclusion. Anyways, so they have their values, right? And that's all I knew. That's all I knew growing up. That was my first job. So I always try to remember my roots. And so even when I'm making hard decisions, like for PMG, I'm like, well, what are the values for PMG, right? What are the values for my life, right? Because every business that you create has its own entity, right? So it has its own set of values and its own mission and its own vision, right? And so I sit down and I'm like, okay, what is it? And it's just really like this necklace, when I do wear it, it's more of a reminder of where I started, right? And my foundation and my support. And so I'm actually wearing it. I'm about to head into a launch starting on Tuesday. And so I put it on as more of my kind of my power. It's really for me to be grounded with myself. So thank you for even noticing it. I don't even know how you saw it, because it's
come on.
Lower.
It's not,
but I love it.
Wonderful.
It's so cute.
I love it too. So we're closing here.
Yes.
We have a launch for a business. This coming Tuesday, our recording is going to be a little bit later than that.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to relaunch every 3 months. And that's what I was telling you to do. You need a relaunch.
Yeah, we're relaunching every 3 months. Let's talk about now where people can find it. So we have Physicians Moms Group on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, you can follow me on Facebook. Obviously, I am Hala H. Sabri. If you look me up, or Hala Sabri El Nagar. I have my married name on Facebook. But if you're a physician, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. You can always join one of our support groups. We do have one co-ed group that's more just all clinical discussions. But you can go to mypmg.com. And that's where you would apply to be part of the group, where you can keep up with what we're doing. You can sign up for our newsletter. I send out a newsletter every Monday. And I put a lot of love into it, and I don't spam people. Okay. And if you're interested in coaching, I mean, I coach not only physicians, I coach women in male dominated fields in all industries, you guys. And you can go to drhalasabri.com and, and go there. So, but yeah.
Awesome.
And you know what? And maybe I'll make another surprise appearance in Max Allure too for your next round. So maybe you'll see me there too. Yeah.
We will see her, and we will probably have a Facebook Live with her shortly. So.
Oh yes, let's do it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks from the bottom of our hearts. We're so honored, so happy that you took this time to be here, share your story, inspire others. Guys, you can do these things. You are not going to be Hala Sabra. There's no need to become her. You can be yourself. Be successful, and design your physician life.
You'll be greater than me. It's not about being me. It's about being even better.
Have a great day. Thank you very much. Well, guys, that's it for today. Stay tuned for more of our Design Your Physician Life podcast, which was brought to you today by our Max Allure Mastermind, an exclusive mastermind and professional development program for physicians where we teach entrepreneurship. We'll continue to bring you useful resources to develop your physician entrepreneur life, like we did today with Dr. Hala Sabri. Actually, you can find more about her at halasabri.com. That is HALASABRY.com. Thank you for joining us. We hope you had a great time as we did. Stay in touch with us. Visit our website, maxallure.com. That is Maxallure, MAXALLURE. And please don't forget to subscribe, like us, give us 5 stars, and share with your friends and family. See you later. Bye.
Please remember that Design is not providing specific financial, medical, or career advice. Our only intent is to stimulate your appetite for growth by sharing our experience and those of our speakers, coaches, and guests. Your personal growth and success will be unique to your circumstances and your hard work. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next week.